mentioned something very interesting to me. You met your husband,
Yes.
right? Tell us briefly about that young love. Stories of meeting of our spouses are always amazing to me, and where we do that. And today, people meet on dating apps, and I can't imagine that world.
I don't know how that works. Yeah.
I'm dating myself now, but many of our friends have met each other on dating apps. Tell me about meeting Lieutenant Colonel Mark.
Mark, coming up from Georgia, went to a small Bible college in Iowa. And he went simply because that's where it was kind of a family school. His dad had gone there, uncles, cousins, and his brother was currently attending there. Mark, if he were here, he would tell you school was never his favorite thing, and college was far from his mind, but his parents were quite insistent that you go 1 year, and he ended up going 4.
Yeah.
But he went to this small Bible college in Iowa. My parents were stationed in Iowa as well. So again, we actually met at a Salvation Army function. Mark was very involved with his local faith community where he was at college. I was active in mine, and there happened to be a regional event.
Yeah.
And we were both there at the same time, and folks introduced us. Yeah. So this boy from Georgia and this girl from Iowa happened to be at a Salvation Army event at the same time, and we met. We sort of dated, kind of off and on. I mean, he was involved in school, I was doing other things, but that's how we connected. And then you fast forward that a couple of years later, and I am now in the middle of my training experience to become a Salvation Army officer, and Mark is getting ready to begin his. And we meet at a national Salvation Army conference. It's in Kansas City, and who would have known that we would cross paths again 2 years later? Yeah. Him coming up from Georgia, and me coming from Chicago, and we crossed paths in Kansas City. And that time it stuck. I met his family, and we started writing and talking on the phone.
Not email.
Not email, talking when it was expensive to talk on the telephone. And that began our relationship. So it actually was a long-distance relationship until the day we said I do. It was the first time we lived in the same city.
Wow.
And but it's that faith community, that made it feel right. And it's a faith community that facilitated all of that. Yeah. So when I say I'm a product of the Salvation Army and all of its services and all that it offers to any individual, the holistic approach to ministry and to social services and to all of that, that's me.
Yeah.
That's me.
That's neat. That's neat.
And now I will have been an officer come June, 40 years.
40 years.
40 years.
Wow, that's incredible. That's absolutely incredible. Tell us about your appointments and maybe some neat things about each appointment, maybe different cities you've been in.
We started off as corps officers, so that meaning we are responsible for all of the Salvation Army work in a particular city. So that means our congregation, the community, the clients, the services, all of that came under our command, our supervision. We've been in small, tiny towns. This girl from Chicago, when she got married, moved to Waycross, Georgia.
Waycross, Georgia.
Which is 30 miles south of the Florida state line in a little tiny rural town. Let me tell you, it was quite the culture shock. But I have never met such warm and wonderful people in my whole life. And just because I didn't eat squirrel like they did, it was okay with them that this Yankee girl had come to live in their town. Yeah. And so we've had wonderful faith communities like that in Waycross, Georgia, and then in Gainesville, Georgia. So that's in the mountains of North Georgia. We've also served in administrative appointments, starting off first in youth work. And we did that for almost 10 years, running the divisional camps where we all send our kids to camp. Mark and I used to run those as part of our ministry, and working with the different corps around a division, helping them to build and encourage their youth on the local level. So we did that for about 10 years. We've also, as you mentioned, we've been area commanders. It really was a defining moment for me in our particular area command appointment, where I realized I needed to step up my game, so to speak, and my role. As Salvation Army officers, we're both called to ministry. And in the Salvation Army, both husband and wife have to be trained Salvation Army officers. There can't be one without the other. And so, but as married couples, we kind of figure that out for ourselves along the way. Okay, you're going to do this piece, and I'm going to do this piece. And then, well, I'm good at this, so I'll do this, and you're good at that, you do that. But that's usually done in the core setting, and where we all start off at. If in ministry with a congregation, and it's local, it's all focused right there. When you move to administration, okay, what happened to all the people that were there every Sunday? You know, because that was really my role, and was the pastoral care piece.
Yeah.
And now I'm sitting at a desk with a computer, and I don't know.
You got all this extra time on your hands.
Well, yeah, so I thought, and I really realized how much administration and how much leadership it took to run a command. And my husband actually called me out. He said, I need you to do this. I'm like, you're right, you do need me to do this. And we had to redefine our roles in this administration setting that we were in, which was good because then we did move on to other administrative roles. So we've been on the divisional level, and then we've also been at the Evangeline Booth College, which is in Atlanta, which is where we train our Salvation Army officers for the whole southern region. We were on the faculty there, overseeing curriculum. And so we spent 4 great years there. And there's where I really learned to take people and really pour into them with real intentionality. Before, I was just doing it because I loved it, you know? And I probably could have been better prepared, you know, in those early years when I just did it because I loved it. And we were the faith community, we just did life together. But when you're on the faculty and you're training people to be Salvation Army officers, you have to be pretty intentional. And I really learned that intentionality piece of ministry. And being prepared and looking for outcomes and holding people accountable to grow and develop and train. So those were 4 great years in that appointment. We've also served at territorial headquarters in Atlanta, again in the youth department, giving oversight to a wide range of youth programming across the whole southern United States. We've also served at the national headquarters for the Salvation Army, which is housed in Alexandria, Virginia. We served as program leaders for the entire nation. So that's a little daunting. And but it was very, very fascinating because we saw another side to the Salvation Army that we had never seen before. And we were officers of 27, 28 years when we went to this particular appointment. And we saw how the nation responds to the Salvation Army. Because we served on a great deal of committees representing the Salvation Army at ecumenical gatherings, at other nonprofit agency gatherings and boards and committees and whatnot. And we would go as the Salvation Army representative, you know, and to hear a cardinal in the Catholic Church say, well, I think we need to hear what the Salvation Army has to say. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I'm representing the whole Salvation Army in the United States right now in this moment, in this conversation. It was a huge growing experience for us. And yet we still had our faith community. One of those pieces for us was to put together, lead and direct the National Seminar on Evangelism, where we brought Salvationists from all across the country, and we spent a week together really learning how to intentionally tell our faith story so that we can impact the world and the world in which we lived in. And so that was a marvelous experience, to talk to people from Arizona, meet Salvationists from Washington State and New York City, and all come together and share our faith stories and the desire to be able to, I want to be able to tell my story and not be afraid to tell my story. And so that was afforded to us, being on the national level in our appointments. And then in the last 10 years, we have served as divisional leaders. 2 divisions. We served in the Kentucky-Tennessee division, based in Louisville, Kentucky. and served there as the divisional leaders for 4 years. And we have since been in the Washington area for 6 years as divisional leaders here. So we now oversee, the Commonwealth of Virginia, Maryland, the District of Columbia, and the state of West Virginia.
Yeah.
That all comes under our leadership. So as divisional leaders, we have a team that helps us do that, which is very helpful. So
Yeah.
we have a finance team that pays attention to all the
Yeah.
finances. We have a program team that pays attention to mission and ministry and social services. So we have a good team around us, and that allows us to give what we hope is good, not only good oversight to the local commands, but good resourcing as well, so that the local commands can do their thing and do it well.